Pete will not only have to keep the faith, but keep the locker room tuned in.
Finally seeing, all the things come together despite circumstances that are extremely hard.
Sometimes they'll look pretty, sometimes they'll look ugly, but it's about finding ways to get W's.
Hey, Paul, you think it's easy doing this job week in and week out? You come down here and said the Wiener Schnitzel. And you know what? If you can't do a good job of it, I have one hit left in me, Paul, and I'm saving it just for you. Come on down.
Welcome to Upon Further Review. I'm your host, Paul Gutierrez. Yes, the subject of George Hankinson's promise of one last hit way back in 2008. It's been a tough week for Raider Nation as we've lost two pillars of the family, the First Lady of Raider Nation, Carol Davis, and the heart of the Soul Patrol, George Hankinson. Now, I never had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Davis, but I felt like I knew her from the interviews I had with Mark Davis, especially when he told me that she would be the one christening Allegiant Stadium as the first person to light the Al Davis torch in 2020. He said he had chills and goosebumps and tears in describing the moment. And as revered as Mrs. Davis was by the old school Raiders, she was just as respected by the newer vintage of silver and black. George, meanwhile, well, he was the epitome of those old school badass Raiders, the hitman of that feared secondary who later transitioned into a kinder, gentler TV personality for Silver and Black Productions. I was early on the beat when my wife Amy was working as a producer for George, and she would come home and tell me what a thrill it was and how fun it was to work with him, even if he did have trouble pronouncing the name of a certain show sponsor. She told George I laughed at his attempts, and his response, well, it was that video and that audio you just saw and heard. It was a Christmas gift that I will always keep close. A memory for you, then, is this feature on George as he describes his journey to the Raiders.
My desire to play football at the pro level started maybe when I was 10 or 11. I didn't have a fear of playing the game. I loved it. The Raiders became interested in me when I was a sophomore. I got a lot of correspondence from the Raider organization. Draft came around. I had no idea where I was going, if I was going. The Raiders drafted me in 1968, number 7, a 15 draft pick of a group of talented guys who I came in a league with for the Raiders. You look at the names that I came in with, Art Shell, Marv Hubbard, Charlie Smith, Elridge Dickey, Kenny Stabler. We became part of the nucleus of the Raiders from that draft. We wore the silver and black with pride. We understood what the tradition was and what we had to live up to. Definitely a blessing for me to be drafted by the Raiders.
George's laughter could fill a room, and it was infectious. And while he was known as an intimidating defender, he might have had his hands a little full with our first guest today, a guy who once led the NFL in touchdown catches, James Jones. We look ahead to Week 9 and the Raiders coming off the bye with a home game against the Jaguars. James, thanks for joining us. And I guess I got to ask you right off the top, coming as a former player coming in off the bye, how welcome is that? How needed is that? Especially for a team like the Raiders, whose first 7 games didn't really go the way they had planned.
Yeah, it's always good to get a little woosah and, get away from football, whether you winning or whether you losing or struggling. But it's always good to get back into the building and get back to work. And I know for the Raiders, kind of a sour taste in your mouth going into the bye week because you haven't really been playing the way you want to play. So to get back to the drawing board, get a couple days and, get away from football a little bit, clear your mind and get back. And now it's time to get back to work.
And with the Raiders' next opponent here at home against the Jaguars, it's a team that, the way the world works is it's kind of a recording. It kind of is an echo. Last year, the Jaguars came in and the Raiders ended a 10-game losing streak against them. And really, I don't really remember much about that game, but is this the type of game that earlier in the season can really be a springboard for them to get things going right going forward?
Yeah, definitely. The best thing you could do, though, we just got to find a way to play our style of football and play good football. I think since this season started, we haven't really played good football. We haven't walked off that field, probably besides week 1, saying that, we dominated in all three phases and played really good football. So I think the main thing for the Raiders is just finding a way to get on track and playing good football and putting a good product out there. Listen, this is a new year. The Jacksonville Jaguars is a good football team. All right, they can run it. They got some really good players. The quarterback is playing well. They're a really good football team. So it's going to be a tough challenge, but we gotta look in the mirror first, especially come off the bye. We got to fix the things that we can control and go out there and play some good football.
I think one good thing for the Raiders is if they look in the mirror, they're going to see a lot of healthier guys, if not healthy guys, looking back at them after this bye. You got Jacoby Myers, knee and toe. Brock Bowers, a knee. Adam Butler, a back. Max Crosby, a knee. Isaiah Palomau dealing with an ankle. If all those guys are back, what can that do for the momentum of this team? Because, like you said, there really hasn't been that feeling since week one. You've been playing with a limited roster anyways. But if you get all these guys back at once, what does that do for the team, not only confidence-wise, but schematically?
Yeah. Well, that's huge, man. Those are some of our best players. We all know this is a player-driven league. I don't care who the coach is. I don't care if the coach is James Jones. I don't care if the coach is Bill Walsh. I don't care who the coach is. Players win football games. And if you have some of your key football players out due to injuries, it's going to be tough to win football games. Brock Bowers is a huge part, if not the most important piece of our offense. So getting him back is going to be huge. Work in the middle of the field. He's a coverage dictator. And then obviously getting Jacoby back. One of the best route runners in the game is definitely going to help Geno. And then defensively, you're talking about one of the best defenders in the world, and Max Crosby, getting him back out there on the field. And Troy's been playing well too. So, it's always good to get those guys back healthy off of the bye week and, go out there and find a way to win a football game and play some good football. Something
you said right at the top there, especially about Brock Bowers. He was injured in week one when he had that really tour de force performance, and he hadn't been the same since. Missed a couple games after that. But last year against Jacksonville, targeted 13 times, 11 catches, 99 receiving yards. How much truly of a difference maker is he? Not only because of what he does, but because of the attention he's dragging, but how everyone else can benefit from him simply being on the field and being right.
Yeah, I think the main thing is when Brock Bowers is in the game, right when you get off the bus, if you're a defensive coordinator, you got to find number 89. You got to identify where he is because linebackers is too slow for him. Corners is too small for him. He's able to play outside at receiver. He's able to play, inside at tight end. He can block really well. So he's a coverage dictator and he's a big-time threat. And not only that, if you got to identify where he is, now you're going to have opportunities to run this football, with Ashton Jeanty. So he's a huge part of what the Raiders want to do, and he's a huge part of them having success on the offensive side of the ball. And you've even seen since week one, Geno Smith has not been the same without Brock Bowers. And that's just the facts of the matter. And he's a big-time player when you talk about, making plays and being a coverage dictator.
So what I'm hearing from you then is if Brock Bowers is out there and if he's right, that's going to improve Geno's game simply because of another weapon. Beyond that, he's got a familiar weapon coming back in Tyler Lockett signing with the team. He had him up in Seattle, a former All-Pro receiver himself. You being a receiver, I want to get your player perspective on this. How nice is that? How comforting is that? How dangerous is that you could kind of fall back into old traits if you get a familiar face coming back to you?
Well, I love this move from the Raiders, going and picking Lockett up because, number one, it's the chemistry factor.
Right.
When you've played with a guy for so long, it's chemistry. It really doesn't matter what playbook you're running. All you got to do is look at him and say, hey, man, remember when we ran this route against the Minnesota Vikings years ago? Or, so it's a chemistry factor. I remember when I, came back to the Packers and with Aaron Rodgers and everybody was like, where has this James Jones been? Well, there's a lot of chemistry built up between me and Aaron. So, it doesn't matter the offense. It doesn't matter really how much time you've had off or away from each other. You're going to find a way to get back on the right track. So I actually love this move for Geno. So if you get Brock back, you get another dude in Tyler Lockett back that you have a lot of chemistry with. They're trying to set it up so Geno could play comfortable and have some success.
So let's move on to the Jaguars here a little bit. I guess this version of Charles Woodson, a guy that could play both ways, a Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter. Before the Jaguars bye, they're coming off a bye also, just like the Raiders. He had 14 targets, 8 catches, 101 yards, a touchdown. Also, a pass defense on defense. What are you seeing from Travis Hunter in terms of not only just a unique talent, but also a guy that you could be in the same receiving room with, but also a guy that could potentially be defending you?
Yeah, special talent. Let's ease up on the Woodson.
Heisman. He's a Heisman winner. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, he's an extremely talented player. When I watch him, to be honest with you, obviously he's playing both ways. I would love to see him play full-time defense and then have a couple packages in there on offense. But as you're watching this season unfold, man, you're watching the Jacksonville Jaguars say, man, he's too explosive not to have on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, to not be the number one option over there and to have 14 targets is letting me know that they are trying to get the ball into his hands. They know that he's explosive with the ball in his hands, and they know that he's an explosive route runner and playmaker. So all eyes on deck for him when he is out there. A really talented kid, especially when the ball's in his hands. He's a tough tackle. And then defense, man, you can't teach instincts. Yeah. And I think that is his specialty. He understands the game, and he has phenomenal instincts of going up and making plays on the ball and reading pass concepts. So, I'm looking forward to watching the young kid play in person, man. I think it'll be a good game for him as well. But we got to make sure we find where 12 is at on offense because they're trying to get him going.
Not only that, but when it comes to the Raiders' running game, Ashton Jeanty, the rookie, he's going to face a little bit of a stiff challenge as well. Jacksonville's given up the 6th fewest rushing yards. They've given up the 8th fewest rushing touchdowns. And yet Ashton didn't really have much of a presence in that Kansas City game. Not many Raiders did. But what can get him going against this Jacksonville rush defense that really is kind of stout a little bit?
Giving him the ball early and often.
Okay.
You have to find a way to get him in a groove. And I don't care if you're tossing him the ball. I don't care if you're throwing him the ball out the backfield. I don't care if you're handing it off to him. But early and often, you got to get this young fella some confidence in the football game. He has to get hit. He has to break a couple tackles here and there so he can get in the flow of the game. So I'm hoping it's a heavy dose of him. I know we're getting some key players back offensively, but as for the Raiders, man, we have to find an identity of what we want to be on offense. Right now, we do not know. But if you do want to start somewhere with an identity, man, start with the run game, the kid that you drafted 6 overall, and give him some value to go out there and make some plays. But early and often, we got to get him the ball. And even if it's a negative run here and there, we still got to give him the ball. Don't just abandon the run too soon.
James, it seems like from day one when Pete Carroll got here, that's the kind of identity he talked about. We haven't seen it yet, but coming out of a bye, what better time to really establish that, especially with all the guys coming back around? James, as always. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And that's always been Pete's DNA.
Yeah.
When you date all the way back to college, you had Heisman with the quarterbacks, but you talking about, thunder and lightning with Reggie Bush and Lindell White. You talking about beast mode up in Seattle. Like, he starts with the run game. That's the main reason I'm assuming he went out and got Ashton Jeanty. Start with the run game and let's find a way to get the young fella going.
And I'm with you because I covered those USC teams at the LA Times back in the day, and I may have written thunder and lightning every now and again about Reggie and Lindell. But yeah, we'll see if they can make it happen with the Raiders. James, as always, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So speaking of running backs, we got a guy who made the transition from skater and surfer dude to one of the fastest tailbacks in the league, Raheem Mostert. He joins us next. Don't go anywhere.
Hey Raider Nation, when you come to see the Raiders take the field at Allegiant Stadium, you should do it from the best seats in the house. So grab an ice cold Coors Light, and you can enter to win tickets for these Coors Light silver seats at Allegiant Stadium. With plush seating, state-of-the-art beverage coolers, and wireless phone chargers, there's no better place to watch your Raiders bring home the win. Celebrate responsibly.
Meet Max Out. He's a credit wrecker. His eyes are bigger than his wallet. And his credit score pays the price. You see, Max doesn't know he should only use 30% or less of his credit limit, because using his full line can lower his score. Don't be like Max Out. Instead, learn how to avoid the wreckers at creditwreckers.com. Credit One Bank, for what's ahead.
It's game day. The day we've been waiting for. And this is more than just a game. It's a passion, a lifestyle. Here at the Raider Image, you're part of our team. Whether you're in the stands or cheering from home, we've got your back. Feel the confidence. Own the game.
We
are the Raider Image. Your game, your gear. Exclusively at the Raider Image.
For the first time ever, step inside Allegiant Stadium on the eve of game day. When the building comes alive, this exclusive 75-minute guided tour gives you a rare access to the final pre-game prep, sound checks, lighting tests, rehearsals, and more. Go beyond the standard experience with behind-the-scenes access to suites, clubs, and areas off limits on regular tour. Hear untold stories of the stadium, feel the energy of kickoff coming alive, and you might even spot Raider Rusher. This is your all-access pass to game day, before the gates even open.
Hey, welcome back to Upon Further Review. I'm Paul Gutierrez, and joined by our guest who we just saw the highlight reel of, the sizzle reel, Raheem Mostert. Raheem, thanks for taking the time. What's more exciting for you, I guess, seeing highlights of yourself like that, or being able to take a break in the middle of a season with the bye week?
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Just seeing highlights, it almost brings back a little bit of the reminiscent, right? You wanna have that feeling and that urge when you come out of the bye week that you still are a valuable piece in whatever scheme that you're doing. So, me, I take it like that. And then bye week, that's a reset mode right there. You want to get your body and your mind reset. And so for me, I just go back. I went back home in South Florida and enjoyed it with family.
That was going to be the next question. What did you do over the bye? And I know you're a Florida guy,
yeah,
a surfing guy, a skating guy, and now you're here in the desert. There's plenty of beach here. Not a lot of water though. What kind of was that transition for you, like going from Florida to? And I know you play for a lot of teams. You're in your 11th season in the NFL. But what is that transition like for you being here with the Raiders?
Yeah, it's a little bit challenging just because I've experienced the desert life now.
Yeah.
Coming out of Florida, it was all humidity, hot. When you broke a sweat, that meant that it was good work.
Mm-hmm.
Out here is a little bit different. You try to break that sweat, and it's like it evaporates.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you're sweating. So, and then also the altitude. It was another change for me. So, just being able to come in early on during OTAs and managing all that stuff and the elements of the weather and trying to get my breathing techniques down. I really had a focus on that. And coming from Florida, like I mentioned, man, you don't have to worry about all that. So just the climate and the change, it really puts a perspective in mind for the players that you have to do your due diligence.
So when you come back to the team and you guys are out there and you're practicing, getting ready for Jacksonville this coming weekend, what is the team's mindset? I mean, obviously the first 7 games didn't go exactly to plan, especially when you look at the win-losses. What is the team's mindset heading into the bye and now that you're coming back out of it with the game at hand?
Yeah, when we came back this past Monday, I think that one of the big emphasis was, hey, look, we got a stretch of games that we need. And it starts with, week 1. This week 1 right now for us is the Jags. And so that's been our mindset thus far. We got practice, and we're just going to attack it. Today is competition Wednesday. And so we have to compete every day, obviously. But a big emphasis today with the pads on, we have to make sure that we're competing against each other and being our greater versions, our greater selves, so that way we can get another win.
For you yourself, you've been in the league for a while now. Obviously, it's your 11th season in the NFL. You've seen a lot of things. Mm-hmm. You've been a featured running back. You've been a kick returner, one of the fastest running backs in the NFL. Obviously, what's the difference between returning kicks and hitting the hole as a running back? I mean, just this season alone, 8 kick returns, 219 yards. You're averaging 27.5 yards per return. What is that difference in game for you? Is it a different mentality? Is it a physicality to it?
It's a little bit of both. The mental aspect, I think that, when you're dealing with an offense, right, and we're going to run our mid-zone play, right, 14 or 15, that's almost a little bit quicker of a play because you have to read the defense a little bit faster. You got to read your blocks a little bit faster. So when you're dealing with kickoff return, you catch the ball and you have time to set things up. You can press forward for a little bit, a couple steps, and get the defenders, as you would call it on kickoff, right, the kickoff coverage unit, get them going in different directions, and then helping your blocks out, setting the blocks up. It's a little bit different of a mindset and of a phase. So, I still have to use the speed, obviously, but, it's a little more patient back there at kick return.
you got a nose for scoring, nose for the end zone. In 2022 with Miami, you had 18 rushing touchdowns. You got 34 in your career, plus 8 more receiving. I guess for the average fan that just thinks, oh, yeah, he scored. He got me fantasy points, blah, blah. But from your perspective, what is it like when you're actually scoring a touchdown? What does that feel like?
It's a rush.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's, it's all the work that you put in that week to be able to get in the box and put points on the board to help your team win. It's an ultimate rush. And that's something that I have a knack for, and I continue to just try to prove it every day. Just go out here, even in practice. We're supposed to have these finish markers, but me and Deuce and some of the other running backs, man, we take it all the way to the end zone because that's the importance of you have to have the right mindset. And so when you have that mindset, you go into a game and you break a couple tackles, and then next thing you know, it's wide open. You're able to hit the seam and take it all the way. That's what you're chasing after every week in the rush.
It's almost like muscle memory. You want your body to be ready to get in that end zone anyway on every carry. As a veteran in this room, first-year guy in this room, but you're a veteran. When you first came in the league, you had somebody that you looked up to, Darren Sproles.
Mm-hmm.
What lessons did you get from Darren Sproles that you're imparting upon these young guys in this running back room here with the Raiders?
Yeah, it doesn't matter the size. It doesn't matter, your tangibles, your intangibles. It doesn't matter how many years you're in. As long as you have that mindset of being a lion, and going out there and working, busting your tail every day, that's the most important thing. And showing your brothers and your guys in your room that you care about what you put on film, that you care about how you move about in the building. If you know me, I like to say hi to everybody. I mean, even the production team walking in here, I like to say hi to everybody to make sure, everybody around me is in a good spirit because that goes onto the field. I could be able to trust my brothers next to me that, they're in good spirit no matter if we're up, 30 points or if we're down 2. I know that I could look at him and be like, hey, look, we got this. Let's go. Come on. Let's not lose faith, and we still have a game to win.
And you're pushing that message on to the young guys in that room right now.
Yeah.
For you, how tough was it? And I know you've been active for the past 4 games, but being a veteran, being brought in here, and being inactive those first 3 games, how did you wrap your mind around that and still stay in the present and still stay positive?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a mind trick because, I initially I thought the plan was for me to come in and make right off the bat, make a big impact and a big jump. Obviously, I can't control, being active and everything like that. So I have to control what I can control, and that's coming to work, putting on a good attitude, helping as much as I possibly can, whether it be on a scout team, giving looks, everything in that regard. And how I look at it as it'll pay forward, later on down the road. If you do your time, obviously you'll reap the benefits later on down the road. So, I wasn't really. It was almost like it was a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
But I looked at it as more of the blessing side because I knew that once my time comes, watch out. Especially being a part of the offense. I'm like, hey, look, I'm going to make an impact.
Well, we saw those bursts against the Bears, definitely, when you took off down the field. Since 2018, you've rushed the ball 768 times, 3,835 yards. That's the 5 yards per carry. That's the 5th most in the NFL since that time. So it's not like you're just kind of some guy kind of parachuting in here.
Yeah.
You got the experience. You have the resume. What has a guy like Ashton Jeanty kind of leaned on to you for advice, or what have you seen from him?
Yeah, just his reads. He's been asking me. I mean, he's been doing a heck of a job just coming up, asking questions. We talk all the time. Even when I was having my 4th child, I was watching film in the hospital and sending him texts, and him being so receptive and being mature and forming that leadership role, with me. It only makes the job that much easier. And for a guy like him, him just wanting to know so much about the game, wanting to know, the speed of the game, what it's like. And, the first couple weeks he really didn't understand it all that much. He came in and I was telling him, hey, look, you just be patient. Things will start clicking on all cylinders. We're all still brand new and fresh into this thing. So once we get our foot in the door, that's when it's go time. And he's been able to pick up all that information and utilize it to the best of his abilities.
And it's a scheme that you're familiar with because you played with Chip Kelly with the Eagles before. The thing with Ashton, though, I don't know where the nickname came from, but he's known as the Silver Surfer. People don't realize that you're an actual surfer.
Yeah.
New Smyrna Beach, Florida, not to be confused with Old Smyrna. But and people don't realize, too, that when you were young, you had a couple of contract offers from Billabong.
Yep.
What was that about?
Man, growing up in New Smyrna Beach, we're pretty much a surf town. We're known for fishing and surfing and beach life. And I just picked up the sport. I was originally a skateboarder, and then once I found the beach and started surfing a little bit, it's almost the same. And so I was offered a Billabong contract at the age of 14. To do both skateboarding and surfing, and I just decided that it was a pivot. I had to continue to work because all I know is football. And I felt like that was my way out. Going to college, doing the whole college process, getting a degree, being the first in my family to graduate with a degree. So, that was my goal, and ultimately try to make it to the NFL.
What skills translate from skateboarding and surfing to being a running back in the NFL or being in for football?
Balance and also ironically just riding the wave. When you're reading certain looks and holes, sometimes you just got to ride the wave. And that's what I've been able to do. I just view it as me literally surfing on the field. Just watching how the O-line pushed the defenders past, and then that's my shot to be in that tunnel, right? That tunnel and just spring out. That's how I see it as.
So New Smyrna is also known as the shark bite capital of the world, and you go out there and you dangle your feet and you're out there doing your thing. How do you avoid from getting bit?
Man, you can't really necessarily avoid it. Thankfully, I haven't been in a case where I gotten bit. And I've witnessed some of my friends. They got nibbled on here and there. They didn't lose a finger or anything like that. So they just got a couple stitches in their foot or their calf. So
there's no way to kind of put like a monitor on or something to kind of ward them off.
You know what they have? Actually, in a local surf shop, they sell like these ankle monitors that have like these high frequency sound waves.
Yeah.
And you could put them on, and it actually makes the sharks like get away from them. Yeah, so it's pretty unique.
So if you can patent some sort of thing like that to put on running backs, and defenders will stay away from you, and you just keep going and ride that wave all the way in.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Raheem, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you stopping by the podcast today.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. We've got Cynthia Frelund coming up next with her numbers to know, with the Raiders playing host to the Jaguars this weekend. Stay tuned.
It's game day. The day we've been waiting for. And this is more than just a game. It's a passion, a lifestyle. It's time to suit up, Raider Nation. This is Raiders football, where we all bleed silver and black. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. Here at the Raider Image, you're part of our team. Every hat, every piece of gear. Let your loyalty show out. Whether you're in the stands or cheering from home, we've got your back. Feel the confidence, own the game.
We
are the Raider Image. Your game, your gear. Exclusively at the Raider Image.
Pete will not only have to keep the faith, but keep the locker room tuned in.
Finally seeing, all the things come together despite circumstances that are extremely hard.
Sometimes they'll look pretty, sometimes they'll look ugly, but it's about finding ways to get W's.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Paul Gutierrez here. Joined now, as always, by Cynthia Frelund, getting ready to get a little smarter here on things. Coming off a bye week, the team is. I took a bye week. I'm sure, Cynthia, you did not. But the Jaguars did also, so that's kind of an interesting little peg here. Is you got two teams coming off a bye. Let's look at the Jaguars first. Trevor Lawrence. This is a guy that was supposed to be the franchise quarterback, and you see those things that are coming through every now and again. Not sure if he's taking that next step, but he's 7th in pass attempts in the NFL. But he also has the 7th worst quarterback rating, the 2nd worst completion percentage. What are you seeing from him at this stage of his career?
Well, first thing I'm seeing since week 3 that his O-line is letting him down. So he's under more pressure. The first 2 weeks, it was looking great. Like it looked like the O-line was sort of fixed, right? And then now I'm seeing a lot of pressure. And then I'm seeing weird disconnects between he and Brian Thomas Jr., which was a sure-handed situation last year. I'm seeing kind of stuff that we normally thought would be great not really work out. I mean, Brenton Strange was their leading receiver for many weeks down the stretch, and then he got injured. I believe he will be back in this one. But when your tight ends are kind of bolstering everything that's going on and they're not the actual first read, it's just tricky. If they want to try to make any sort of playoff push, they're going to have to figure out how to pass the football. It's kind of strange. I mean, that game against the Rams was wild, their last game.
Maybe just didn't clear customs or something. I mean, the game itself. But when you're looking at the Jaguars, and obviously the name that comes to mind is the quarterback, but then also from the running game perspective, Travis Etienne, the Raiders' run defense has been a strength, if nothing else, this first half of the season for them. When it comes to him and what the Raiders need to do to kind of keep him under control, keep him under wraps, again, the games always come down to what happens in the trenches. And if the Raiders get everybody back there healthy, how big of an advantage would it be for the Raiders if they're able to keep Travis Etienne under wraps?
Huge, because you saw what happened when the Rams did that. They were able to get after him with pressure. I mean, 7 sacks, something like that, was a lot of sacks and a lot of pressure. And we know there's a guy, maybe you heard of Max Crosby, that could exact that kind of pressure on him. But shutting down the run game will be a key in keeping them one-dimensional. And that's the way that you attack this. Force Trevor Lawrence to make the uncomfortable throw. It has not worked out this season. We did see like a fun Travis Hunter touchdown in what I would call garbage time in London. But I mean, if you can shut down the run, you really force them into very uncomfortable situations.
And also from the Raiders' perspective, like I said, it's been a positive for them from defensively being able to stop the run. They're 10th best in opponent rushing yards per attempt. Opponents are averaging 4 yards per carry. He's averaging, he's 11th in rushing yards, 514. So it would seem, who's going to blink first in that attack? And really, is it simply a matter of who's winning the battle up front?
It's a little bit more than that, too, because when your passing game stops being effective, you don't trick the defense as often. So getting them in uncomfortable situations like we talked about, but also figuring out how to disguise the picture for Trevor Lawrence. So he's thinking, okay, when I run it here, this is what, because you saw what happened when the Rams did that, and then they went to Bashal Tutin, who's their rookie running back, and it kind of worked a little bit better, but we do know that Liam Cohen is very good at figuring out running backs. I mean, there's that guy in Philadelphia, pretty good guy that he coached before, but we'll have to see if he's come up with some new schematics along the O-line. But an O-line that started off very strong has since dropped off a bit, after week 3.
As soon as you said Liam Cohen, I was just assuming you were going to go Duval right after that, but no, not this time.
It's an incredible. It never gets old. Duval.
What also never gets old, Cynthia, is your numbers to know. And I'm always kind of like waiting with bated breath here to see what your number to know is coming into this game between the Raiders and the Jaguars, both coming off byes.
5. The number's 5. That's how many touchdowns that Matthew Stafford threw against the blitzing Jaguars. It ties a next-gen stats record for the most such touchdowns in a game since 2016, which is a lot. My point here is how did they do it? Well, they did it via play action. 3 of those touchdowns, Matthew Stafford completed 14 of 15, like over 140 yards, and had 3 of his passing touchdowns, and he had 5 total against the Jags blitz, but he used play action for those 3. So figuring out a way to kind of, all right, so we got a lot of heavy personnel sets, use extra tight ends on the field, figure out play action, and then just kind of copy what they did because it was working. And they actually kind of played the same, they didn't even have to change the schedule. It started off in a certain way, kind of ended in the same way too. So just go watch their plan A, the Rams plan A, and try to emulate that.
Number 5, the number to know this week. And you have more numbers than that, obviously. And so for anybody that wants to look at them, you can find all of Cynthia's numbers to know, her breakdown on the Raiders official YouTube page, as well as on Raiders.com. Cynthia, as always, a pleasure. All right, well, that will do it for this week's edition of Upon Further Review. Thanks to our guests James Jones, Raheem Mostert, and Cynthia Frelund for previewing this weekend's game against the Jaguars at Legion Stadium. To stay up to date on all things silver and black, check out our shows, and you can watch them all on our YouTube channel, and also visit Raiders.com for more content.